Hey graphic designers, this is Mr. Granlund. I'm going to take you through the Principles of Design project. Now to start off with, you see that I'm looking at my Elements of Art project. I would say use this project and use it as a template for your next project. A very easy way to do this, we're going to click File and we're going to go to Save As. Instead of calling it Art Elements, I'm going to call it Principles or Design Principles. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch out the information in pictures so that it reflects the design principles. I'm going to just go right over the top of this. So I'm going to open up Schoology and log in. We're going to go find our course, Graphic Arts. We're going to Unit 2, Good Design. We're going to look in the Design Principles, Principles of Design.pdf. We're going to get our information. I also have the information in here too, so for the different principles, you can find them right here. So I can even copy those, go over to Photoshop, oh, my layers are locked. I'm going to unlock my layers and then paste in the design principles. Alright, so in looking at our project, now that we have the design principles in here, we need to update the other things that are going on. So I'm going to zoom in. I'm holding down spacebar, and that changes my cursor to a hand so I can look at what I'm working on here. So now I need to put in new definitions for each of my design principles. So I'm going to switch over to the PDF document. So I'm working on scale. Scale deals with the size relationship between separate design elements. So I'm going to copy that because that's our definition. And I'm going to switch over to Photoshop. And I'm having a hard time clicking on this part. So when I try and click it wants to go to the big text here. So a trick around that is to lock that layer. So now I'm not going to be able to click on it. And I'm going, so it says, oh, you're trying to click on it. I'm going to go to the most basic element of art. I'm just going to hide it now. Let's try that. So I hid it by clicking the eyeball. There we go. That's going to work. Alright, so now I can highlight that. Control V to paste. Scale deals with the relationship, the size relationship there. And I'm going to go ahead and switch back and forth, getting the different definitions and plugging them in. Now some definitions might not be obvious, like proportion. Concerned with the size relationship, one part to the whole, that's going to be something that you can copy and paste. But balance, it doesn't really have a definition here, so you might have to do some digging. So you might have to go to Google and design balance definition. Okay, that might help you. Okay, balance and design is the distribution of elements of the design. You could also say the way different elements on a page have different weights. So it talks about visual gravity or visual weight. You might interpret also that balance is about making sure the page feels complete, the composition feels complete. okay? And the way that different elements make a composition feel complete, okay? Nope, that's proportion. So I'm going to flip back and forth and put the different definitions in here. I'm going to pause it while I do that. Alright, I just plugged in the last definition, and if I turn this back on, so that was for unity and variety, the amount of difference of similarity there is in a work. Rhythm, created by the repetition of an element of art. Oh. Okay. Emphasis, making a specific element stand out or draw attention. Balance, the distribution of elements of the design. Movement, creating the illusion of action or creating a composition that moves the viewer's eye. Proportion, the size relationships of one part to the whole. And I'm going to go back and adjust these, make sure things are capitalized. And then scale deals with the relationship between separate design elements. Okay. Now that I have my definitions and my kind of subheadings done, I'm going to put in drawings that coincide with our words and our definitions to help me understand what's going on here. I'm going to use my Principles of Design.pdf and look at the pictures to help me understand what's happening in each principle of design. So for instance, regular rhythm has kind of the same or similar objects kind of evenly spaced apart. Random rhythm has different sized objects, maybe different colors, kind of scattered about with no real reason or with no order. And then progressive rhythm, it has gradual changes over the span of the picture. So now I'm going to go into Photoshop and I'm going to try and recreate those. Now I didn't do a very good job of kind of organizing my layers in here, and if I would have done a better job, I would have had folders that had like all of the things that go in this top thing in them, and maybe another folder that has everything that has maybe the second item in them. Okay, so I'm going to have to kind of hunt around in my layers palette to find out what things I need to change. Okay, so I'm seeing that these are all lines here, and I'm actually going to highlight these and I'm going to drag them into a folder right now so it makes a group. And then it also has like the scale relationship. I'm going to call this scale. So that way I know that all the things that have to do with scale are in this folder. Another thing that can help me find which layer is which is when I'm on the Move tool, I can use the Auto Select Layer function right up here in the top left corner and click on the layer and see where it takes me. Okay, it takes me to this, and as I'm looking at this, I'm also noticing that, that's fine. The value is attached to it also. You know, and I may want to start over anyway, so I may even just delete it by clicking the Delete Layer button. Click Yes. So now I'm going to show some examples of scale. Scale is a pretty easy one. I'm going to put it in my scale folder here. And since I don't need these titles anymore, I'm going to delete those as well. And it's a size relationship of one thing to another thing. So all I need are at least two things in there. So I'm going to make a big circle, maybe a big oval, and maybe I'm going to duplicate that, Control T, and size it down. And maybe I'll make another layer, and I'm going to use my paintbrush. I'm going to click and hold Shift, click and hold Shift and drag down, click and hold shift. So I kind of make this little bracket that shows like the scale or the size of that. Click and hold shift. When I click and hold shift and draw with the paintbrush, it allows me to draw vertical and horizontal lines perfectly, even if my mouse movement isn't the best. You know, and just to make it even maybe a little bit more clear, I'm going to create a little text that says size relationship. And I'm just going to make that black by clicking up here in the text menu, and I'm going to move that to there. So we're talking about the size relationship. Okay? So that accurately demonstrates that we know what scale is. Now in these other layers, okay, if I click on them, because I have the auto select layer, it tells me that that's that shape layer. You know what, I don't need those anymore, so I can just delete them. And these titles that say organic and geometric, I can get rid of those too, because I don't really need those anymore. In proportion, the size relationships of one part to the whole. So maybe I'm going to make a little picture frame here. But I'm going to make another group, call it proportion, and I'm going to make some shapes in there. I like to use these shapes just because they're pretty easy to do. I'm going to make the outline black, increase the border size. So here's kind of my picture frame, the size relationship of one part to the whole. And maybe what I'll do is I'll do Control J and then Control T. Now that would be the size relationship of one thing to a different thing. So maybe I'll try making a new layer. Kind of make like a person. Maybe he's got his hand up. I can do better. So here's a really good illustration of proportions. Here's the Vitruvian Man by Leonardo da Vinci. But these are basic head proportions, so that we put things in the right scale. So I'm going to copy this and paste it and size it down. And I want to maybe make this myself. Try multiplying here. And it's alright if you use pictures, but you want those pictures to relate well to everything else that you do. So I changed the blending mode and had it just kind of black on top of the blue here. And I want to have that kind of look to everything. So everything's consistent as I'm making this. So you can use pictures as well to describe each of these. Now there's a lot of empty space here, and so one of the things I'll need to think of is how do I make this like resolve and fill up the rest of this empty space without making it feel like too busy or weird. I could blow things up, I could put more pictures in there, and I'm going to continue to go through these different principles of design and filling out my poster.